Hi, everyone. I am Bianca Rodriguez, Senior Global Affairs Analyst for CNN, and I am thrilled to be chatting today with Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman and Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger for the release of Lieutenant Colonel Vindman's new book, Here Right Matters, An American Story. And he, too, was an immigrant, one of the officers who was trying to hold the line. And I had to choke back tears just listening to him say that he has never been more proud to be an immigrant to this country, defending the democracy here. And it made me think, knowing that we would have this conversation today, about that video that Alex referenced, that you released. I think it took many by surprise, and it was so powerful to hear those words from you as an immigrant yourself, warning about the consequences, the real-life consequences of not upholding democracy. What made you put that video out?
Well, just sorry, because Lulu cannot stand it when I'm alone on the screen. Here, Lulu.
I love this cameo.
Yeah.
Okay, Lulu, bye-bye. See you. Take it back outside. You cannot be in every shot. The thing that I want to focus on is the subject that we're talking about, which is how do we make America stay great? And the thing that I have been talking about for quite some time now is we have to come together as a nation. Not only just to defend democracy, but also how do we make this country and stay number one in the future. The way we can do that is by coming together. We got to go and stop the villainizing the other side. We cannot be a team. When you think about a basketball team or when you think about a football team, what makes the team win is if they're together and if they communicate together and they're going in the same direction. And what we have been doing lately here is in America, it's the Republicans fighting Democrats, blacks fighting whites, Mexicans fighting Asians, Asians fighting everything, and men against women, women against men, and all of this kind of stuff. I don't think this is going to bring the nation together. What we have to do is we have to talk about how do we come together and work together, because we all have a common interest, and this is to keep this country number one. And this is why I just say tolerance, inclusion, and negotiations and compromise. Those are the kind of things that I always have worked towards, and I was able to be able as a Republican governor, for instance, to work in a state that has a majority of Democratic legislators. We were able to work together and to carve out certain things like environmental issues and infrastructure issues and healthcare issues and education issues and so on. We were able to work together. There were some other things that we couldn't work together, like budget issues, that the other side wanted to spend more money, always money that we didn't have. And, being a conservative, I wanted to, of course, only try to spend the money that we do have. And and those things we didn't get along. But in other things we did get along. So we made a real effort. Democrats and Republicans alike made an effort to make decisions that was best for the state of California. And we were very happy to say that, the state is, without any doubt, the most successful state in the union, with the number one economy in California because of that, of them both working together. And we're the fifth largest economy in the world, and we are number one in so many different areas. So I think those are the issues America needs to work together, because there are a lot of challenges. If it is immigration reform, if it is healthcare reform, if it is building the infrastructure and, kind of protecting the environment, having an energy policy that is sound in the future, and all of those kind of issues, what our policy should be to be more competitive internationally and so on. How do we go in that direction? So, there's so many things to address that I think those are the really important issues. So I always promote, let's come together. We can have different point of views, but we must come together and make decisions together in order to really keep this the number one nation in the world.
Yeah, and I misspoke, Governor. If I can just ask you one more question, because you're the voice of reason here, and I hear this often from my dad. On a bad day, when I feel that this country is not moving in the right direction, he puts things into perspective and says this is the best country in the world and things will resolve itself, sort of the thesis from this conversation today. But my question to you is, Do you think an immigrant who came here with just a few dollars, like you and Alex and my family a few decades ago, you a decade ahead of Alex and myself, do you think they could still have the same opportunities? Does this country still offer the same opportunities that you and my family and Alex in all our own separate ways were able to achieve so quickly?
Without any doubt. I mean, and the reason why I'm saying this so quickly is because I just saw a guy down in the gym, at Gold's Gym. He comes up to me, and I see him all the time training people. He's a trainer, and he's from Africa. And he has been here now for a little bit more than a year and a half or so. And the guy is driving, coming up with the car with a Corvette. And so I said to him, I said, you have a beautiful car there. He says, well, I'm working my ass off. I said, how many people do you train every day? He says, 16 people a day. I said, you're working 16 hours a day? He says, yes, 16 hours a day. I said, how much do you charge per hour? $100 an hour. Now, I don't have to tell you not the rest of the story, right? This guy makes $1,600 a day. A day. He has been here for a year and a half, a little bit more than a year and a half. So there is opportunities. If you're willing to work hard, like one of my principles of 6 principles of success is work your ass off. Okay, don't go and look for shortcuts or anything like this. Work, work, work. The day is 24 hours. Let's go and put as much work in. This guy does it, 16 hours a day. That's why he's making $1,600 a day. And this is why he's driving a Corvette. And he has 2 other cars that he was bragging about to me and all this kind of stuff. So I just tell you, there is still the opportunities out there. This is the only place where you can do something like that. And this is why I say to people, I said, we are the best. The key thing now is, how do we stay as America internationally competitive? Because things change all the time. You know, we are now in the international stage, in an international competition. It used to be just America, but now it's a world kind of economy, and we got to be competitive about that. And there are certain things that we need to do to stay competitive internationally. And this is why I say it is so important for Democrats and Republicans to come together in Washington and to start working on those kind of issues, because the other side, if it's China or if it's India or any of those other countries, they're not asleep. They move forward very aggressively in the same thing we have to do in order to stay competitive.
It's amazing, and it's incredible work that Kasparov has done, sort of in the second half of his career in life. Right, first you become chess champion of the world, and then you go becoming a crusader for democracy around the world. The high bar there for someone to top. Governor, one part of this in upholding democracy is shooting down misinformation and lies. And I know what's important to you as public service, whether you're still in office or not, and you're using your voice to fight disinformation right now. And I was really struck by a Facebook post that I think you put up just earlier this week about all of the misinformation surrounding COVID and the vaccines, and an issue we're once again battling in this country, where we're seeing an increased number of people hospitalized. Our frontline workers are once again having to exhaust themselves in saving lives, and we have so many who refuse to get a vaccine. I just want to read a portion of what you wrote. You said, Dr. Fauci and all the virologists and epidemiologists and doctors have studied diseases and vaccines for their entire lives. So I listened to them, and I urge you to do the same. None of us are going to learn more than them by watching a few hours of videos. It's simple. If your house is on fire, you don't go on YouTube, you call the damn fire department. If you have a heart attack, you don't check your Facebook group, you call an ambulance. If 9 doctors tell you you have cancer and need to treat it or you will die, and 1 doctor says the cancer will disappear, you should always side with the 9. What inspired you to finally publicly make a statement like this, which is 1,000% accurate?
Well, first of all, you have to understand that as soon as the virus happened, and we have finally more and more people from government have, kind of acknowledged the fact that there is a virus. And they were kind of very late, may I remind you, in warning the people. But finally, when they did warn us and it did spread, and we had to kind of cancel our Arnold's Classic Sports and Fitness Festival in Columbus, and we were only allowed to have a limited crowd last March, meaning a year and a half ago. That's when I realized that we all have to now come together on this thing. And so I started putting posts out there about washing your hands regularly and wearing a mask and to do social distancing and to follow the kind of rules that the experts put out there, and to face the fact that this is here and this is going to grow and it's going to expand and it's going to really affect a lot of people's lives. And so now, cut year and a half later, we are still in a mess. And, there's still people that live in denials. There's still people that don't believe in masks. There's still people out there that say, well, we don't have to do social distancing and all this kind of stuff. And I just think that people ought to be reminded over and over that the experts are saying that we have to wear masks, especially when you go indoor. The experts are saying we still should wash our hands regularly. We should still do social distancing, especially now with this the comeback of the virus, which is the 4th round now, that we have to really go and work together on that. And there is misinformation out there. And my point of it was basically, look, I'm an expert on how to build a bicep. And so therefore, I know exactly what I'm talking about. I've studied this issue. I know exactly how to create this peak and all this stuff. There's no one that knows more about a bicep than I do, because I studied this issue for 50 years. And the same is also with the virus. There are people out there that are experts that study this year after year after year, and that are experienced, like Dr. Fauci, that has been in this, probably for his entire life. I mean, why would you not believe someone like that? So, and there's so many other scientists out there and experts on this subject. So I believe them and I follow them very carefully. And of course, sometimes things are happening that are unexpected. So then you have to make the adjustments and all that. But I think people should know there is a virus here. It kills people. And the only way we prevent it is to get vaccinated, to wear masks, to do social distancing, washing your hands all the time, and not just to think about, well, my freedom is being kind of disturbed here. No, screw your freedom, because with freedom comes obligations and kind of responsibilities. We cannot just say, I have the right to do X, Y, and Z. When you affect other people, that is when it gets serious. It's like no different than a traffic light. We put a traffic light at the intersection so someone doesn't kill someone else by accident. So this is why we have a traffic light. You cannot say, no one is going to tell me that I'm going to stop here, that I have to stop at this traffic light here. I'm going to go right through it. Yeah, then you kill someone else, and then it is your doing. So this is the same thing with the virus. You cannot go and not put a mask on, because when you breathe, you can infect someone else, and you can infect someone that then gets sick and may die. So this is why I think we all have to work together on this. The only way we can lick this virus is, again, if we do like I suggested earlier about politics, we have to come together rather than fighting and always just saying, this, according to my principles, this is a free country and I'm going to have the freedom to wear no mask. Yeah, you have the freedom to wear no mask, but you know something? You're a schmuck for not wearing a mask, because you're not supposed to protect your fellow members around you. It's just that simple. So this is the way I feel about it, and that's why I am out there and talking about it and tweeting out about it and doing videos and all this kind of stuff, because I want people to understand. I don't want to villainize anyone here, but I just want to tell everyone, let's work together and let's stop fighting, because there is a virus and it's better to get vaccinated than to wear a mask.
That point just prompted me to a quote that I found of yours that I think is apt for what you just described. And you said, I operate with the European mind, and I also operate with an American mind. That's why no one can figure me out. It has nothing to do with Republican versus Democrat. I never pay attention to any of this political stuff, period, because I think that both are full of, I believe you said, crap. So how does that message transcend? You've got a powerful voice. You're a former publicly elected official. I would argue your voice is just as powerful in many ways because you have such a big social media platform. How do we get voices like yours to amplify the truth as opposed to some of the other garbage that's on social media right now?
Well, first of all, what you talked about was that because I'm a foreigner, because I'm born in Austria, made in America, okay? Because of that, I have on one side the Austrian sitting there, and on the other side, the American Arnold sitting there. And they're arguing all the time, may I remind you, all the time about every issue, because I grew up, like, for instance, with, universal health care. So, of course, when I became governor, I promoted and tried to bring everyone together, and we were almost successful to create universal health care in California. And then, of course, there were the Republicans that said, well, what's the matter with him? He must have been hanging out with Teddy Kennedy too much, with those Kennedys, because he's married to a Kennedy. So he's becoming more and more Democrat. He's not really a Republican. It had nothing to do with the Democratic Party. It had only to do with that I grew up with a healthcare system where everyone was insured. And I liked that, and I felt like the fifth largest economy in the world, the richest state in the union, should have universal health care where everyone is insured. Let's figure it out. It had nothing to do with Democrats versus Republicans. Why does one party have to carve out anything for themselves? This is common sense that is good for all people, not just for Democrats or Republicans. It's the same thing with the environment. There is no Democratic air. There is no Republican air. There is no Democratic water. There's no Republican water. We all drink the same water. We all breathe the same air. So let's stop this nonsense, this kind of like political dialogue. This is a Republican principle. This is a Democratic principle. It's all nonsense. The thing is that we have an obligation to go and to really solve those problems as they come along. So we should have health care for everybody in America. We should go and get rid of pollution as quickly as possible and not argue, is there climate change or not climate change? It has nothing to do with that at all. It has to do with we got to get rid of pollution, like Ronald Reagan. He was a great Republican, but he created the Air Resources Board in California that enables us to go and to reduce our greenhouse gases. And California was the only state in the union that reduced its greenhouse gases by 25% within a 10-year period. And at the same time, even though they say this is going to hurt the economy, we are number one economically. And our increase in GDP goes up faster than in any other state, and the second largest after China. So it just shows you that you can protect the environment and the economy. So those are the kind of things. It's common sense stuff that I'm talking about. And I'm very fortunate, I think that both of you are, that we come from another place and we see things in different ways. And therefore, I think it enriches you and it helps you with your decision making.
Yeah. And just in the final few moments here, I just want to piggyback on that point, because, you could talk about the economy all you want. Without a planet, you don't have any concerns about an economy. So we're all in this together, especially after that devastating UN report yesterday on climate change. Just the last few minutes, Alex, I do want to ask you something else about your background, because especially as a Soviet immigrant like we both are, what really stood out about your story is that not just you, not just one of your brothers, but all of your brothers just gave back to this country by serving in the military, voluntarily. Obviously, we're fortunate to have a voluntary military here. What was it that drove all of you to give back to your country in that way?
I definitely want to answer that question, but first, I'll tell you, it's just so wonderful listening to Governor Schwarzenegger speak with the hope in his voice, something that I think all of us share, and a love of country, and looking for ways to make this country better, to make the lives of American citizens better, bring people together. I mean, honestly, it's a beautiful thing to hear, and we definitely need more of those kinds of messages and more people speaking out with a love of country, not a kind of a hatred or a rancor or something that's focused on the shortcomings which exist, but that we have always kind of sought to overcome and made progress on. So it's great kind of hearing this, and maybe there's something to be said about kind of maybe the Constitution needs a relook, and if immigrants are here for 40 years or more, maybe we should have eligibility for higher office also. But To answer your question about...
Let me just say, I'm an only child, and the argument I always made to my parents was it wouldn't be fair if they had another sibling in America because that sibling could be president, I couldn't, and it's not fair. So I'm all for that constitutional amendment.
That's right. Even Putin has introduced an amendment. I think it's if you're a Russian citizen for 25 years or more, you're eligible to run for presidency. Now, of course, that things don't work that way in Russia. But
your name is Putin, yeah.
Yes, that's right. But I think there is something to be said about all of my brothers and I wanting to give back to this country. It was an instinctual feel. Now, we didn't know that was going to turn into a kind of a lifelong passion, a lifelong career. But we knew we wanted to give back. We wanted to serve this country. And at one point or another, all of us had the opportunity to make this decision, and every single one of us chose to contribute in one way or another. My older brother kind of broke the ground for us because he started out in ROTC. He enlisted and was a Special Forces reservist when they still had that kind of specialty. And we needed a way to get our energy out. In the book, I talk about how we were kind of rascals growing up. Not particularly focused, troublemakers, getting into fights and all that kind of stuff. And we needed a way to get our energy out. I wish it was through bodybuilding when we were that young, but we didn't. We should have tried that. But once we started our military service, it became clear that this is a way that we can both contribute to ourselves, to the nation, but also to improving ourselves. I mean, I think it's clear when you read the book how much I benefited from my military service, how much I learned, how much I grew as a human being, how much I grew, a better husband, father, leader, and I was able to do that through public service. So oftentimes when I talk about, what lessons I could draw is look at service. Look at service as a way to do something that's focused externally, bigger than yourself, because it helps you to give back to the community, but it also helps you grow as an individual. And in doing this, you start to figure out what are the right things to do, how to overcome challenges, and one day you'll be faced with, these tremendous challenges. I was faced with one, and I think my decades of public service, my upbringing, my moral compass allowed me to kind of navigate it in a way that I felt was honorable, in a way that I could live with. So I encourage people to look at service, local, federal, state, whatever the case it might be, and you'll get something out of it.
And Governor, final question to you, and it applies to Alex, because the question he gets now is what's next for you? And public service comes in many forms. He's already given back so much to this country, as have you, Governor. What advice do you have now on the record for Alex? And could we see a potential elected official there? There's a vacancy coming up soon, as we know, breaking news in New York State Governor's office. But that may be a few steps down the road. But what advice do you have for Alex now?
Well, I think that he has shown tremendous leadership. And I think that I agree with everything he said about the military. I was only in Austria for 1 year in the military. I went with the age of 18 voluntarily. And I tell you something, that the things that I learned that 1 year, putting together your clothes, ironing your shirt, learning how to sew on a button, how to iron and press the pants, how to get up at 5 in the morning and how to go for your runs and how to go and handle weapons. How to drive an M47 American patent tank and all those kind of things. I mean, and it was such tough kind of a year when you go through this basic training and all this stuff, that after that, nothing is tough anymore. Everything is then easy after that. So I think the discipline and the stuff, the camaraderie and everything that you learn in the military is priceless. I mean, I tell you, I just am so happy that I was able to go and be in the military for 1 year and get the kind of training that I did. Now imagine you multiply that with the amount of years that Alex has been in the military. It's unbelievable. So, I don't know what Alex's vision is. I don't know what his dreams are. I don't know what he sees in front of him in the future. So that is the important thing, is what is his dream? What does he want to do? So for me, I can make recommendations. It doesn't matter what he does. He will be successful. That I can guarantee you. So it can be public service. It may be getting in the private sector. It may be writing more books to be a commentator on television. Whatever it is, I think he will be able to do it because he knows how to focus on things and he knows how to follow through and how to follow a certain program. But it will always entail something of giving something back to this country. That I can guarantee.
They come through, do things in the right way for that episode, that challenge, and then continue on and try to make a prosperous life for myself and my family.
Lieutenant Colonel, to remind everyone, you were working at the White House as an expert on Russia and Eastern Europe for the National Security Council, which is how you found yourself on that notorious quid pro quo call that led to Trump's first impeachment. You say from the moment you heard the call, you knew you had to report it or nobody else would. Tell us why.
Well, for one thing, I was the official responsible for that portfolio, for that matter, at the White House. So I didn't even, I certainly considered whether other people were going to report it, but I knew it was my responsibility to do it. It was my duty to do that. It was my duty to uphold my oath of office, which included supporting and defending the Constitution of the United States against enemies, foreign and domestic. And I saw a risk to our democracy and an impediment to free and fair elections, and I knew exactly what I needed to do.
Lieutenant Colonel, as you mentioned, at the time, your twin brother, Eugene, worked across the hall from you as a high-level ethics lawyer for the NSC. As you mentioned, right after the call, you went into his office and told him, quote, "If what I'm about to tell you becomes public, the president will be impeached." But you write that you never expected that to happen, or if it was even the right course at the time. Why not?
Well, at the time, I judged that those decisions were way above my pay grade. I was a director on the National Security Council. It is a senior position, but it's still a small cog in a big machine. And my duty was very simple. My duty was to report what I considered to be terribly wrong, and then when called upon by Congress, to testify to the facts of the matter. And it's interesting. Oftentimes, this is what I'm associated with. I get it. There's no question that I'm an impeachment witness. But in a lot of ways, the book is written with Trump as a simple foil about how to navigate difficult events, how to do the right thing in the right way. And the tools I assembled as an immigrant, an experience that all of us share, as a public servant, and trying to maybe indicate a recipe for people to navigate challenging times. So that was the whole motivation for this book, which almost didn't get written, actually.
Well, Lieutenant Colonel, you also reveal in the book that your father was an avid Trump supporter who would not believe that the president had done anything wrong on that call. I think many families can relate to having a partisan divide. How tough was this on your relationship, and did he ever change his mind?
It was tough only in that it was a point of friction and an argument that we might have periodically. But in fact, it did not put my relationship with my dad in any jeopardy. I had no doubts in my mind, if push came to shove, who my dad would be supporting. He's a loving, terrific father that sacrificed an enormous amount for us kids. And I knew where we would fall out and eventually. For me, the trick was really, frankly, to kind of almost deprogram him, convince him that, what he was seeing on far-right media, what he was hearing on kind of Russian programming was, in fact, propaganda, and that this was a very, very serious matter that jeopardized our democracy.